Before the site had even been cleared, Stephen Holl was honored by the American Institute of Architects for his addition to the Institute of Science. His building grows from the exploration of scientific ideas. Holl's renovated existing museum and addition form the new institute, where exhibitions explore the connections between natural phenomena, the earth, and mankind.
The development of this new Institute of Science has been the result of a lot of collaboration, but there are three main parts to that collaboration. Part one is the Cranbrook Institute of Science itself and our staff, and what we bring to this is the creativity about science and what we want to show, how to understand the world. The second big piece of that is the building and the architecture that went into that, and Stephen Holl's work. And the third big piece is the set of designers, craftspeople, artists, and developers that Dan Hoffman has pulled together to create the exhibits. Stephen Holl is very unusual as an architect because he really understands science. He understands about the world, and he likes it. He reads the Science Times. You know, he's the kind of person who gets turned on by scientific ideas. And that's very visible in the new building. You can see how those ideas get played out.
I've been inside the spaces in my imagination, so it's really great now. Today's the first day, actually, that every piece of steel is up. So every piece of the geometry in the space is in place, and all the proportions work. So I'm very excited, that I'm very happy that everything I envisioned and made models of, actually, I can see now, because I can see the surfaces. What you look at is a metal frame, but I can see the red plaster over here. I can see the light coming in that skylight. I can see the circulation vents here. It's all working.
We were lucky to have a couple of years to design, so we could try many, many different ways of adding on to this U-shaped existing Sarnan building. And we came up with the idea of just touching, with a new building, just touching the ends of the galleries. The real meaning of architecture is how we experience the space, see the light, touch the materials, feel the perspectives overlap, sense the proportions. All those are really the phenomenological dimension of architecture. The intellectual or conceptual dimension, it's up to the architect to have. I think it's a balance of these two realms that one really senses the greatest potential of architecture, because in reality, one can not know about these ideas and still feel the power of the space.
For me, a door handle is very important. It's where the human body first touches the architecture, and there's an impression that's made, and how it feels is very important. But if you look carefully, you see that this is also the whole building. There's the light laboratory, there's the main hall, and there's the study gallery.
Visitors can experience all of the exhibits without ever having to traverse barriers, and also without ever finding dead ends.
We thought of a scientific principle called strange attractor. A strange attractor, I think, was described by Lawrence in terms of its movement between two loops, but is like a fly moving through space. It never goes exactly in the same path. It always takes a new path.
As you move around this building, there are a number of places you can take choices, take another route, so that every visit to the museum is a slightly different one.
Everything is open. Everything is connected, and connection is a key to understanding this museum, and we think to understanding the natural world.
There are exhibits that are really built into the building. One is the light laboratory, which is the main entrance, and it's different qualities of light which come from the different refraction angles of the sun, really become an exhibit that changes every day. And you can see in this light laboratory a south-facing wall of about 15 different kinds of glass. And one of the wonderful things is that the experiment of light, refraction and reflection, is really what the space is about.
The idea here is that the Garden of Science, which is this courtyard, this section of space that's surrounded by the new museum, gently folds and connects to the outer landscape. You can see the bridge going over there.
In the exhibits that are in this garden, we focused on water. It undeniably has a visceral quality that connects one's memory to the earliest memories in life and connects one to certain unexplicable feelings and mysteries. And I think that this is the essence of the experiential dimension of architecture: space, light, and material.
Near the center of their garden is something called the House of Ice. It's designed to basically make a large sort of walk-through ice cube, you might say. It's 16 feet high, and in the wintertime we spray fine mist of water on a woven stainless steel mesh, and on this mesh will form this layer of ice.
See? It's not even hot.
One of the most striking features in the science garden is the House of Vapor, and that, of course, is water in its third state on the Earth, is water vapor.
It's cool, isn't it? It doesn't hurt. Looks like you're going to burn, but you don't even feel it, right?
The House of Vapor kind of symbolizes clouds.
Then you disappear.
Now, underneath the flowing water passages in the garden, there is a hall, an exhibit hall, which is lit because the bottom of the pond is glass brick, so that the light can trickle through the water and ripple on the floor of this exhibit hall.
So you can see here the wonderful action of the wind and of the clouds. Now the cloud has passed over the sun, and if the wind's blowing hard enough in a moment, yes, it's pure sunlight moving in the water. So the flow pool action above then is activating this whole passage.
The architect mentioned that he had a long concrete wall in this passage. So we thought it would be a nice idea to find some water fossils, or a better way to put it would be ripple fossils. These are ancient seabeds that are found in the Upper Peninsula. So we went up to the pictured rocks and we found a long expanse, a shelf of rock that had all these ripples in them. So what we did is we cast these ripples in polyurethane, brought the casts back down to the museum, and put the casts in the wall, and they cast the concrete rock against these casts, or these molds. So what's left is a beautiful pattern of ripples on the wall.
Here you can feel the undulating pattern that's preserved.
The Connections Theater is a good example of how many different disciplines come together. It has a very sculptural presence in the museum. It was made by and designed by architects, but inside the theater you have graphic designers and multimedia designers making a very complex video production. Here we're telling the stories that the visitor will see throughout the museum.
Were wiped out, including the dinosaur.
In a real way, this museum, the Cranbrook Institute of Science, is about understanding the world, which is a very large order. But we do that through the use of people's own innate desire to learn, to understand. And that is based on something that we call the stages of wonder, which you get when you look at some really marvelous object from the natural world, such as a dinosaur. You know, your first reaction is to say, wow. And the second reaction is to say, I wonder how that got there. And the third reaction is to figure it out. Say, I can understand that.